Everybody, what is up? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 award winner in the innovation category given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. And on most Sunday afternoons at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, I host a conversation called Black Canada Talking. What's Black Canada Talking all about? It's a live online event that provides Black Canadians the opportunity to give their takes and POVs on stories that are of importance to them. And also, once in a while, we just have someone come in and share with us. And that's the occasion today. I'm very blessed and highly favored to have Dr. Rosemary Sadlier to share with all of us today. Just a little background about herself. She is a historian, author, educator, and Black history expert based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Among her publications, Harriet Tubman and the Kids Book of Black History. She was a consultant and writer contributor to Black History, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americans. She has completed her course for her doctorate at OISE, which is the Ontario Institute for Studies of Education, and that's part of the University of Toronto. So I should call her Dr. Rosemary Sadlier. So if I didn't do that, I'm correcting myself. Dr. Sadlier is an expert on the history of African Canadians and has been interviewed on numerous media outlets, including CTV, CBC News Network, CBC Syndicated Radio, TVO, Radio Canada International, City TV, CP24, WNED, and PBS, the Toronto Star, Globe and Mail, National Post, Toronto Sun, Share Newspaper, Pride Newspaper, and the Caribbean Camera. She's presented across Canada, the United States, and the Caribbean. Her recent writing concerning Black history-related matters include a monthly column for Inside Toronto, and book chapters for a publication called On the Ward and the Caribbean Network Facebook site. I could go on and on and on, but we want to make sure that she comes on and shares with us. But Dr. Sadlier, I have to call her, is going to chat with us today a little bit about Emancipation Day, giving it the commemoration, I have to get that word right, it deserves, Black Canadian history, and we may even touch a little bit about the Royal Commonwealth Society. So let's welcome, this is the second time she's been on Black Canada Talking. The first time that she was on, she was with oh my gosh, Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard and Peter a few months ago. I can't remember Peter's last name. My forgiveness, my head, not my heart. And we're talking about Emancipation Day a few months ago. But today we have her all for ourselves. So welcome, Dr. Rosemary Sadlier.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, this is really kind of scary now that you have me all to yourself. I really don't know what that's all going to be about, but I'm it's the day after Halloween. It's the beginning of November. Who knew that we would be spending so much time in the comfort of our own homes over the past few months? Yeah. But here we are.
Every time I speak with you, whether it's on a platform like this or over a phone, I remember, and hopefully you'll remember this, many years ago.
Before dinosaurs?
Yeah. And I told her before this is probably the event or the Black Canada Talking I'm going to laugh more than any other up till now. So don't, everyone needs to realize Rosemary Dr. Sadlier is a comedian. So she's like Trevor Noah comedian.
I'm Rosemary. I was a mom. When you're a mom, you have to be able to do a whole lot of things.
It's true.
I'm still a mom, but they're not little kids anymore. So but sorry, I interrupted. But
no.
Well,
I just wanted to just share with the people. Do you remember the conversation we had a number of years ago at the Burger King?
Yes, I do.
Remember that?
I remember getting together. I remember the feel of the conversation. I remember that we talked about so many things. And it was an opportunity for me to get to know you a little bit because you were just starting on this journey. And, let me just say congratulations to you because I know how hard it is to do things when there isn't significant, clear support for what you're doing. And I think that people come to know, are engaged with different elements of different topics in different ways. And for those people who really value working online, who really value auditory messages, because I believe you can hear this after the fact, this is such a helpful tool. So thank you so much. And congratulations to how much you have grown and on all the awards you've received so far.
Wow, that is. We can stop the conversation now. No, no,
Okay.
no. Well, thank you so much for the kind words, and it's individuals like yourself who have laid the foundation, and it's for individuals like yourself that I'm a firm believer that every success needs a successor. So, I one of my goals is to provide that succession for the groundwork that you have laid, you and others have laid. So we can hear from individuals like yourself, you done good, you
Well,
done good. Right? So
yeah.
that's really important. And just want to share, Ryan Singh is saying she's an actor too, and yes she is. Yes she is, because I well during
Congratulations to you, Ryan. You
yes.
just got a grant, some funding to do a film, I believe. So good for you.
And also Sarah Oyango from Ottawa says yay,
Hey,
because I know
Sarah.
Sarah is a huge fan of yours.
Well, I can I just this isn't even what
Absolutely.
I'm not even
We're
supposed to be
just going to
talking about
chop it up,
this.
because so many people, when they hear Rosemary's name, but she's an incredible storyteller. And I love, and this is something before she starts, I want to really emphasize with our Black people the
Who are they?
importance just that we need to make sure we tell stories. That
Yeah.
is part of our heritage, and intergenerational conversation and storytelling is one of the foundations of our people. And Rosemary is very, very, very good. So Ryan's saying application only. He didn't get some, but he's done an application. So he's just correcting you, but no
Sorry.
problem. So
Well,
my
and Ryan, I'm just going to talk about Ryan for a minute, and Sarah. Ryan, I met when around the time that I had launched something called the Black International Film Festival. And I did
wow.
this because at the time I was feeling incredibly frustrated that there were no films featuring, created by, representing the African Canadian community. So, with no money, no budget, no strategic plan, I was able to get films from Canadian sources, mostly NFB, but they were good films. They just hadn't had the opportunity to be vetted. And I was able to pull them together as the process grew, because the first launch was at I think at the ROM, no, the NFB, and then I moved to the ROM. And we were able to get films incorporating the South African Council General, Fazika's Voice, I think was one of the names. Anyway, we were able to build it. And the festival ended for two reasons. One, I didn't have any money to keep it going. NFB had changed some of their policies. And also because TIFF finally was now starting to feature artwork, film by people of African origin. So there have been people out there for a long time. Ryan, you're amazing, but we're looking at SUDS. We're looking at. I better stop getting into names because I'll get into
No, no,
trouble.
it's okay.
I mean, it's just. But there have been people doing the work.
Yeah.
They just weren't getting the access, and so
And Rick,
sometimes
yeah.
it's two things. It's not just that nobody's out there, which is my least favorite excuse to hear. Well, they aren't trying. They aren't in that field. They're not contributing. We are here, and we're in every field, and sometimes we need access. But anyway, so Ryan, I'm so happy that you are getting access, and congratulations.
Yes,
And
see, and
Sarah,
go
just to
ahead.
before I lose that, because
No,
I
no.
love Sarah, and I Facebook memories just reminded me that we had a great picture taken with Andre DeGrasse. It was awesome. But Sarah, my first memory of Sarah, while we had been in touch, I think mostly by email, and I would run into her at launches of February as Black History Month in Ottawa initially, she was one person who I really felt her support around my first book in particular, the kids' book of the first book that got significant uh, readership. It was a award-winning book, and she was just so supportive, and I will never forget that. I truly appreciated that about her. Um, and at a time when not every person who had access, that word again, to media, she was somebody who did. And her connection, like Ryan's, to doing what they can in the places where they are planted is phenomenal. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, Sarah's saying, I have all your books.
Good for you.
Ryan is saying thanks. Sarah's also saying Matthew DaCosta challenge, Rosemary.
That's right. Well, I was in Ottawa for the Matthew DaCosta Challenge, and that was an outgrowth. That was the gift that the government of Canada gave to us all. Um, I had been the proponent for February as Black History Month at every level of government, saw it happen in every province, went to several MPs. It landed with Jean Augustine. She was able to do her piece in Parliament. Had been doing my piece in the community. Probably gave over 2,000 Black History talks in schools and community organizations.
Wow.
Built up a public event to celebrate Black History Month, the brunch, which is now hovering 1,000 people, I believe, in attendance. But that was all before social media. So that meant that you actually had to write real letters and you had to make real phone calls. And I was doing this often from my house. Anyway, all that to say that I remember, because it's, February is closer than we think.
Yes.
And I would be in Ottawa for the launching of, for the I was a judge on the final selection committee. And that was great. But unfortunately, the government also helped to see that end because they felt that they weren't getting the number of submissions that they thought were appropriate. I think that with a bit more promotion, it could have continued, and we should still see something like that. But that's just my opinion.
Okay.
But Sarah, thank you for that reminder.
Yes, and Ryan's also saying Fazika's voice.
But thank you. It was Fazika's voice. That was one of the first films that I was able to secure in conjunction with Selani Mokoena, who was then the Consul General for South Africa, a phenomenal woman who with great vision. And from there were other films also from South Africa in particular, but of course now they are included in TIFF. And I also believe I later was able to work with a couple of other African countries.
Yes. Also, I'm getting a shout out here from David Hughes from Australia,
Hi,
who is
David.
checking out our conversation. And Sarah's saying it also helped to have the great John Dennison of Canadian Heritage advocating for Black History Month programming nationally.
John Dennison, there are so many times, Sarah and I both have had these moments, we've shared them. And sometimes, not everybody who it looks like us is doing things for us.
The old thing,
I'm just going to put that.
Not all skin folk are kinfolk.
That's
Yes.
it. I'm just going to put that out there.
Okay.
And so there are certain people that that you could call and you could get a straight answer or helpful advice, and you could call them anytime and you can just talk. You didn't have to get around to it. And John was one of those people. Now, Sarah had greater access because she was in Ottawa with him, but John was amazing. And there have been times, even since his passing, where I will literally pick up the phone and be ready to call John. And it's like,
oh my goodness.
I can't. But
wow.
John was funny, You think I'm funny? John, I mean, John had a very uh, subdued sense of humor. And I got to know more about him when we went a number of years ago. There was something created. Peter Haynes and
Yes.
Parks, U.S. Park Service and Parks Canada, as well and as Canadian Heritage, got together and created this thing, this living entity, which was really phenomenal, called the Binational Charrette on the Underground Railroad. And literally, a charrette is a study of. So
Right.
we were studying the Underground Railroad through traveling and visiting identified sites connected to the Underground Railroad. This was a 14-day trip that took us
Wow.
through Ontario, Michigan, um, Pennsylvania, Indianapolis. I could be wrong, but many of the northeastern states, as well as southern Ontario, and culminated in the end when we had a gala reception in Windsor, Ontario. Anyway, in all of this, John was such a funny man. And I think that between his being perturbed and his being amusing, it made the days go by very quickly.
Nice. Nice. Just for people who are watching, who I know that Rosemary used acronyms like ROM and TIFF. So just to give you proper
Yes,
context, ROM is the Royal Ontario Museum, and TIFF is the Toronto International Film Festival, because we're both based in
sorry.
the Toronto area. So just want to make sure, especially someone from Australia, they're going, "What's ROM? What's TIFF?" So I just want to make sure that they have a sense. That's a Royal Ontario Museum, great institution, and also TIFF, Toronto International Film Festival, one of the most recognized film festivals in the world, which is run by a black gentleman named Cameron
Cameron
Bailey.
Bailey.
And interesting, Mr. Bailey, actually, quick little Cameron Bailey story. You mentioned earlier on, in my early days, keeping persistent and consistent. A number of years ago, there was a Men of Excellence presentation being done. I think it's the first one done by the Black Business and Professional Association. So one of the people there was Cameron Bailey. So I don't. So I wanted to get an interview with Cameron Bailey. So I said I'm gonna go there, and I wouldn't do this now, but this is back then. So
I'll do
Cameron.
it now.
Well, this is sort of like shock journalism, in really. So I went up to Cameron. I said, "Hey, how's your dad's insurance company doing?" And he had never met me before. He's going like, "Who that? Like
I didn't
who
know
that?"
his dad had an insurance
Well,
company. There
here's
you
the
go.
backstory. Cameron's father, who's passed away a few years ago, my father and Cameron's father knew each other for 30 years. But Cameron did not know that. So when I approached him, he was like, "How do you know?" I said, "Oh, don't worry, Cameron. I'm not a stalker or anything. I'd like your dad and my dad have known each other for so and so." So we ended up doing an interview right there, and he was so gracious, so
Cameron
humble,
has,
and
he's lovely.
yeah, and pardon me, for many years he got me passes to do interviews, etc. So that was my Cameron Bailey story. So you know what? Uh, we're gonna go back, because David Hughes, not all skin folk are kinfolk. I like that quote. May I use it in my context speech? The space between, which I'll give on. Absolutely. We're more than happy to. And then Sarah says, "Me too," talking about Mr. Dennison. She says, "He's still on my voicemail, a great advisor and champion of all of us fighting to get visibility for Black Canadian history, stories, and culture. He is very, very sorely missed."
Well, and just that one more comment on that.
Sure.
Sometimes you have those champions and they're amazing, but it doesn't mean that others that follow are as able, willing, or existing in spaces that allow them to act in the same way.
Sure, absolutely. And David
Mm.
Hughes says diversity and inclusion mean a lot to me, and I speak about it often. You are more than happy. And let me say, if you ever want some great insight, especially in the province of Ontario in regards to Black history, Black culture, the lady who's beside me, reach out to her.
Hi, David. I don't know you, but by all means.
Yes, absolutely. And David, if you want our contact information, you know how to get a hold of me, and I'll certainly provide that. And even if you want a formal introduction, we can do like a Skype call, and I'll host a call, and you two can get to know each other better. So, love to put that out there. Rosemary, one of the things you are known for, in a good way, is the start of the Ontario Black History Society.
Ah, I didn't start it.
I know you didn't start it. Okay, my correction, your affiliation with it.
Okay.
Can you give some
Absolutely.
background on how that started? Because I don't, ever since our Burger King conversation,
The
I don't
Burger
remember how
King
that
conversation.
happened. So if you could share with our audience how that happened.
Okay. The short, long version is that essentially I was at home with children. I had been volunteering with the OBH Ontario Black History Society.
Sorry.
I was impressed by things that had gone on before and was very intrigued by Dr. Daniel G. Hill and what he had done, but
Yes.
I wasn't connected to the organization at that point. Paul Anderson, I knew of some of the good work he had done, as well as at Rella Braithwaite, but I wasn't necessarily involved when they were presiding. By the time Karis Newton was the president, I was actually somebody told me that that's what I should do. So I ended up on the board. I was a volunteer for a number of years, and then I was on the board of the organization. Came early one year, came on time actually to a meeting, an AGM, and I was appointed the president of the Ontario Black History Society. I had not been angling for this. I had not been strategizing for this. I just got to the annual general meeting on time. So it was a bit of a surprise. And actually, I think it ties into the whole thing about why I ended up being a proponent for February as Black History Month. Up until that point in time, what had happened is that people would go to the city of Toronto every year and say, please, may we have Black History Month? They would ask for a proclamation. And I didn't realize that this was something that had to be requested every single year. The AGM was around this time of year, and we had already, by the time we were making this realization, it was pretty close to the new year. So I was able to get that done with the city, get that taken care of quickly. We were behind schedule in terms of the request. Then I realized we can never let this happen again, because if the only way that we can get people to begin to really talk about, and when I say people, not just people of African origin, everybody, because Black history is not just for Black people. If we were going to get everybody to continue to be involved, and February is Black History Month is the focus, we cannot let this focus disappear. It shouldn't be the focus, but that's the way it often worked. So I went to every province in Canada in order to secure a proclamation from every one of them, which I got. I went to a number of different MPs, and ultimately, actually, it fell to Jean Augustine, but I remember the moment when we were at Denham Jolly's home for a fundraiser, and I asked her in person again if she would support February as Black History Month as a proclamation, and she laughed at me because, of course, the federal government does not do proclamations. But they do declarations, and that's what she offered to work on. And Lloyd Perry, a Black lawyer, was there at the time, and so this was something that everybody seemed to feel was a great idea. It was built upon a community of interest that I had already been working through the OBHS to help create. Those presentations in community organizations in terms of all of that outreach, trying to partner and work with other groups. So there was a community of interest willing to support this thing called February is Black History Month. So that's one of the things that I was able to achieve in the 22 years, 23 years that I was president. And I just want people to know that I was not paid to be the president of the Ontario Black History Society. This was a volunteer position. I was the president of the board of directors. I was still at home nursing my third child. So sometimes I'm making phone calls while trying to supervise 3 children, one on my breast. It was a very challenging time. I was able to see to a number of commemorations of historic people, places, and things. I was able to grow a brunch from about 95 people in the boardroom to closer to 1,000 people at more public spaces, hotel spaces, which was quite interesting. And we've had some phenomenal people involved. I think that it was a precious legacy that I was working with. The problem was that I didn't have the precious resources that would have made what I was doing even more effective. Our funding was cut, what little funding we were getting, which allowed us to pay for an office staff person. But about a year or 2 into my presidency, our funding was cut by the province of Ontario, 90%. So it forced us to, instead of focusing on what was our real strategic plan, to follow basically just try to stay alive kind of a strategic plan. And it was a very, very challenging time. Know that I'm also doing this as an unpaid volunteer while doing all of the things that a mom does, doing all of the things that people do when they're looking for work, when they have a job. It was a challenge. It was a challenge. And the best part, I remember a lawyer who shall remain nameless asking me out for lunch. And I had the idea that this was somebody who was now going to, seeing the need, was going to advised me that he was going to either volunteer, be on the board, or make a donation. And instead, he wanted to know why we weren't doing more.
Oh my.
Now, let me backtrack. The board, I did have a board of directors. It was not just me alone. But my board of directors were wonderful people, primarily comprised of the women who had been part of an organization called the Canadian Negro Women's Association. So wonderful people like Alcina Crawley, like Penny Hodge, like Aileen Williams. These were people who were on the board or in the office or doing the real other work of making some of those phone calls as well. But there were no people who were able to go out to events. There were no people who were willing to drive at night. There were no people who were younger and able and affluent enough to be able to do certain other things that really did need to be done. The OBHS was carried on the backs of Black women. So I just think that that context is important, because that lawyer was quite interested. He wasn't even a paid member.
Wow.
But
Wow.
he wanted to know why we weren't doing more. And I think that all things considered, we did a whole lot. And I am so grateful to the people that I worked with for their guidance and support, for encouraging me to remember to place our community first and my own needs after that.
Rosemary, thank you for sharing some of that journey with us. I've got some comments here. Dr. Sadler, I hear stepping up, I hear networking, I hear support each other and promote. And also, Ryan is asking, when will the Canadian Black History Month documentary be made?
That's a very good point. Now, I know that Winston LaRose has some footage that he was hoping would become a bit more, because Winston, by chance, doing his community bit as well, his valuable community bit, but we're all doing our bit, was able to capture footage of various events, some of which I was part of, but one in particular, when Black History Month was going to be first celebrated across the country in February 1996. I was advised, I was able to organize a bus trip, and because of timing and because I had a large painting from David Kabuka to present to the Prime Minister, I flew up to Ottawa to give myself a bit more time to, be sure I was there and no problem. The bus trip arrived. Winston was on the bus trip with others, including, well, I won't name names, a bus full. And that was the only contingent from Toronto to arrive there. Everybody else who was there was from the Diplomatic Corps and people from the Ottawa area. The room was packed. It was really, I remember that evening very well. And I remember coming home and the sink was still full of dishes. But
Oh my!
But the documentary, Ryan, it does need to be made, because I think that this is a part of our story.
Yes.
And people think they know the story. There's a lot of pieces to that story.
Well, Ryan is saying, will we make it together? So obviously, if you have Ryan's contact information, hopefully that
I know how to get in touch with him. Yeah.
conversation piece. So let me ask, what is one memory? And I know there's many. You gave us a memory that wasn't so good, that the lawyer was sort of saying, why aren't you guys doing more? But what's a memory that you still have today, a cherished memory from your journey with the organization?
There's a few. There's so many. The first time that the organization itself was given an award, the first time that we were able to be part of a commemoration, the first time a Canada Post stamp was unveiled, the first time with a Black figure, and we were part of that. The first time that a Heritage Minute was unveiled in conjunction with us, having people come up to you and letting you know that they really did appreciate what you were doing, even though I'm sure they had no idea, but they said it anyway. But I think it's when you would have those moments and you would be with a kid, a group of students, you're going in and that moment of, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And,
wow.
and sometimes, because you've been talking about it or thinking about it, you forget that every generation, every year, every few months, people think, oh, I'm so tired of hearing it. Well, these kids, for them, it's new. Or maybe when they heard it last time, they weren't old enough for it to really resonate. So don't be afraid to repeat.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, time is going quickly, so I want to also hit on one or two other conversation pieces. Emancipation Day.
Yes.
Giving it the commemoration it deserves. Do talk to us about that, because many people who look like us aren't doing it, are probably not even acknowledging it. So please share with us on that.
Well, first, let me just congratulate some people south of the border who today or recently just effected their own commemoration of their Emancipation Day. Our Emancipation Day is ours alone, ours for the British Empire, and our Emancipation Day in this country is August 1st, 1834. Now, There are people who might want to challenge that because they want to look at what happened previously with Lieutenant Governor John Graves Simcoe in the first compromise legislation that almost freed enslaved Africans outright, but not quite. It was compromise legislation. So this is our date. But before I go into any other tangent, I would really encourage everyone watching, especially if you are in Canada, to write to your MP. Tell them you want them to support the Emancipation Bill, which I believe is M36, which will be read the beginning of December. Tell your MP you want this, you expect this, because it helps to add to the complexity and the dimension of African Canadian and Canadian history, because it speaks to the reality that freedom started at that point in time, but it also acknowledges the reality that there was at least 200 years of enslavement of Africans in this place that we now call Canada. It's important that they do that. I'm very happy to say that MP Majid Jahare has been able to get it to first reading again this go round. And I was recently advised that MP Greg Fergus, who is the head of the Black Caucus, will be is the first seconder. Is a I think that's the proper term, which basically means that he'll be speaking first to the bill once it is read again. But let me go back.
Please do.
August 1st is Emancipation Day was something that sparked automatic, immediate, joyous celebration across various parts of the British Empire, including Canada, various places across this country. When the British Imperial Act was passed in July of 1833, and taking a year to get around to all of the countries in the British Empire at the time, it was still something that was celebrated by people here because they wanted to see their fellows and the fellow community members, other Black people, the other members of the African diaspora, freed both in the United States and in the Caribbean. This act only freed people who were in Canada, in British parts of the Commonwealth like Bermuda, Jamaica, British Guyana, and actually in some places it didn't even immediately bring about freedom. It brought about a 4-year indenture. So we have had this celebration going on within the Black community for ever. It became, it grew and became even more important, but by in the 1960s, the largest celebrations included Port Dalhousie near St. Catharines, which is organized by B.J. Spencer Pitt, who was a lawyer in Toronto, connected to the UNIA or UAIA, Universal Negro Improvement Association, the Marcus Garvey organization. Or the even bigger one was in the Windsor area, organized by Walter Perry. Now that one was phenomenally big, and because of the proximity of Windsor and Detroit, people were back and forth by custom. It was unfortunate because the civil rights movement and some of the violence that came about because of various things at that time put the police in a situation where they felt the celebrations needed to end. And that really slowed things down and pretty much brought the celebration of August 1st as Emancipation Day to an end. Then we had this wonderful thing called Caravana that was created in 1967 to mark the centennial of Canada as a country, and also to bring in, to build upon many other things that had gone before, including what the Canadian Negro Women's Association had done in terms of creating the Calypso Carnival. So it was celebrated, but it wasn't officially commemorated. About 1995, around the same time that I realized what a challenge we had had, or what a loss we could have had in terms of Black History Month, I was approached by a good friend now from the Caribbean Historical Society of Trinidad and Tobago, who encouraged me to set about trying to have an official commemoration for August 1st as Emancipation Day. And he really saw it as being something that ought to be global, which I certainly agreed with. We were able to get it going with commemorations in the city of Toronto, Metro Toronto, the city of Ottawa. And then I was able to get it done with the province of Ontario through the first unanimous all-party bill, Bill 111, of the provincial parliament in Ontario. I tried on many different occasions with many different persons, with many different political parties, because my approach has been nonpartisan. It went to second reading twice with under Deepak Obdrai in the House of Commons. It went to second reading twice with the work of Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard. And it went to first reading with Majid Jahari just before the pandemic set in. So that's why you really need to support it now, because this particular initiative has been in the wind since 1995. It's on you to make it happen.
Thank you for the background, thank you for the context, and thank you for the call to action in regards to that. And it's a very, very important movement and important. We need to get this done.
Well, we need to get it done. I mean, here we are. We're talking about, oh, where did this systemic racism come from? Do we have systemic racism? Well, how do we really understand what is going on today if we refuse or are unable to talk about what happened before? And all of this is a natural, unfortunately natural progression from what has taken place previously. There would be no systemic racism if there had been no slavery. There would be no slavery in Canada if there had been no transatlantic slave trade. And it goes on and on and on. So in order to help us all have those difficult and uncomfortable or just clarify certain things, we need to be able to put some of these concepts out on the table and talk about them openly.
Very, very true. And again, I just love the way Rosemary tells a story, gives the point, lays out all the important pieces, and then at the end just nicely gives the call to action. Really, really
Thank you.
done. Well done. Like, well, anyone who's done like 2,000 presentations about Black history and counting knows how to deliver a message. With the time that we have left, I want to get back to the whole area of Black history. And one of the questions, you talked about your time with the Black History Society. I want to ask you this question. If you were presented that opportunity today, going back with what you know, would you accept it? And B, what are your thoughts? What would you like to share with our audience about Black history as it stands today? Because I know one of the things I think that you and I agree with when we're in our offline conversations, we're not doing enough of it. So if you were presented that opportunity today with what you know, say it was, let's revert back to when you were I don't like talking about age, but younger, but you knew.
What? I'm old now.
I don't. That's why I say I don't like to talk about age with women. I don't like doing that.
Good plan.
Right? Would that something? Because you said that you didn't even know you're going to be asked to do it, and you said yes. Was there any part you said, I don't want to do this? No. Why did you take it? Why did you take it on?
You know, I think that I think everybody. I would like to think that most people want to have a purpose in their life. We're not just aimlessly wandering around. We want to see things happen.
Yeah.
And I think that for me at that time, because I had children and they were young, and because I had grown up here and knew what I had gone through, and because I was also at the same time coming to be reminded in so very many ways that we were not post-racial, and almost to be shocked and surprised by what was happening for my children, because a part of me really wanted to believe that we had just moved the dial a little bit, that we were a little bit further ahead, and we were, but there were still many issues. And I think that it was because of my children, and because of who, not just my children, but who they were going to school with too. My kids needed to be affirmed in who they were, and the kids that they were going to school with needed to understand that people who looked like them had also been major contributors to this society. So that was very critical for me at that point in time. And I think that I'd like to think that it helped to inspire some of what my children are doing now. Finding those things that are not fair, not equitable in our society, and finding ways to address them. At this point, with what I know now and not having babies, little babies, I don't know what I would do, because I haven't really stopped doing what I had been doing. What my work now is not framed by one organization called the Ontario Black History Society. I have created an online presence called the Black Canadian Network, which is a vetted Facebook site. I write. I make sure to share posts on social media that I think are of interest or that might spark discussion. I present at various places to various organizations and institutions. So I have continued to do many things that I had already been doing, and frankly, that I had been doing before I was ever at the Ontario Black History Society. So if knowing what I know now, would I go back to do what I did? I don't know.
Okay. Fair answer.
I don't know.
Fair answer. This has been a very interesting year, 2020.
What year? We went from ordering pizza to Zoom.
From where you sit, how have you seen it affect Black Canadians? And where are your concerns and where is your hopes past into next year? Because we're only 2 months away till the end of the year, and it's going to go very fast. I would really appreciate, and I believe my audience would like to get your perspective on 2020, its effect on Black Canadians, the concerns and the hopes going forward into the future.
That's a hard one. I think what I really, and this might sound odd to some people, but what's really been amazing for me is that we're able to have some discussions outside that before we could only have inside among ourselves. And I've found that to be one of the biggest changes.
Rosemary, I just want to interrupt. Can you give an example? That's a very beautiful answer. Can you give an example of that? That's great. I just like to, if you could expand on that, I really appreciate that.
Okay. So like the whole thing about microaggressions and what a microaggression is, and now it's something that we actually talk about like it's a real thing, as opposed to somebody being sensitive or having a bad day or having a chip on their shoulder, or the reality that there's something called systemic racism, so that we can get past the idea of, oh well, none of them apply, or none of them have the qualifications, or I don't know any Black people who can do this kind of work, or um, I'm putting it into the frame that we used at the outset in terms of Ryan and his looking for grants and stuff. But it's we are in a position where we can talk about some things in a more open way, which I just appreciate. And I think that I guess I mean, there's so many things. I don't want to embarrass myself because I'm thinking about some really terrible ones. But when sometimes Black people as a community are blamed for everything. we're blamed for crime. We're as a group considered to be less than in so many various ways. And I think that because we can talk a little bit more openly and be heard, yes, white fragility. And white, just as somebody's comment is about white fragility and entitlement. Let's go back to what is white fragility. White fragility is, that idea that you're not supposed to say certain things because it makes white people uncomfortable. And as if Black people have never been uncomfortable. As if being the only Black person in my neighborhood or in my school has never had me in a position where I have been uncomfortable. And finding ways to work with that discomfort in order to move forward. I don't think that white people are more fragile than anybody else. So I think that time has come for us to have those discussions a little bit more. But at the same time, I understand it. But I gave a presentation the other day, and I was reminded. This is like just a microcosm of systemic racism.
Yeah.
So I know the first time I went to my father's side is from New Brunswick. And I went to a place, I was there on a book tour, I believe, or I think that time, the one time I was on a book tour. And I ended up outside of St. John, New Brunswick, in a community called Rothsay, a beautiful, beautiful community, affluent, lovely, large homes, just beautiful. And I looked at that community and it hit me because my father's family had connections to, yes, St. John, New Brunswick, but also to places like Willow Grove and Elm Hill and Loch Lomond, or the remnants of what's left there. And I know that my Black loyalist refugees of the War of 1812, the whole group of them, all of my ancestors on that side, all on both sides, frankly, I know that they came in with the same thing that white settlers came in with, the same aptitude, the same willingness to work, the same determination to thrive and contribute to their community. I know that they contributed to this country because they were defenders and helped to make sure that this country was defended at so many various times during our history. Yet here was this incredibly affluent and beautiful and still intact community. And the communities where my ancestors had been were kind of not there. And it was such a tangible and clear reminder that something is not right if the only thing that was different, not the time of arrival, not the level of education, It was from the very beginning, the differential in terms of land allotment, the differential in terms of how much money was in, on and on and on and on. That is systemic racism.
Nice. Well, I think on that note, we are going to end our conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, like,
Well,
and here's
I
the funny thing.
survived.
And here's the funny thing. Rosemary and I, we were chatting. She goes, like, what can I say? Like, can we go for an hour? Like, and I know you have more to share. And you know what? That's why we're going to do a part two.
Uh-oh. Well, I'd like to thank the people that you definitely named for being here
Yes.
along with this.
Yeah.
It,
Sarah and
and Ryan
Ryan
and
and
David.
Sylvia Parrish from out east.
Oh, hi,
Yes, David.
Sylvia.
Yeah.
Sylvia, I have something that you'll like to hear.
Okay.
So there's this book, and
Oh,
you might want to consider this book. It's called Black History, and you mentioned it,
yes.
Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americas. I was the
Yes.
consultant for the book, and I wrote a number of chapters. And people can get it by getting in touch with the Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute.
Yes.
And I will make
Yes.
sure that you have the details on that. I think it's an amazing book, and not sure. Yeah, okay, I helped to write it, but it's
Self
because
plug.
of
Self plug.
no, but that truly that isn't just the reason. I think that it answers a particular need right now.
Yes.
If people are homeschooling, if people are looking for resources that they can refer to on a regular basis,
Yes.
if teachers are
Yes.
desperate, and I'm sure they are for materials, this is set up in such a way that it's really easy to use for a
Yes.
parent. It covers a broad amount of material. And best yet, there's a teacher's guide. So you can
Wow.
even get digital copies if you're looking for, larger scale sharing.
Wow. And Ryan is saying, true, true. Speak, Dr. Sadler. That is
well, well,
fantastic.
Ryan's home with two kids. I'm sure he's having a good time.
Well, we'll see. And this is one of the things that's happened this year is that homeschooling and more black parents are saying, you know what? I don't want to send my kids back to school because A, they're not learning about their black history.
Well, that's the whole thing. In another thing about Black History Month, um, I know we're leaving, but
No, take your time. Take your
since
time.
from the very beginning of my contact with the Ontario Black History Society in 1995, I've been saying there needs to be Black history from K to 12. There was a meeting of Black leaders, a national meeting of Black leaders. I was part of that. It happened about 5 years ago, 4 years ago. At the round table, I said there needs to be Black history required education from K to 12. At a parliamentary committee, I gave a deputation. I said there needs to be Black history from K to 12. Black history isn't something that should just happen in 1 month. It isn't
Abs-
something that should just
Every
happen
day.
for 1 year in one year's curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Black every single day. I'm Black on March 1st. I'm Black today.
Well, just a few, and see now the comments are really coming in because people are seeing that you're leaving, so then now they're flooding the box here. So I'm gonna. So Sarah's saying, "What an amazing conversation." Louise Noel Ambrose is saying, "Great learning
Oh, yeah,
conversation
Louise.
this
Well,
Sunday."
Louise just got a copy of my previous book, my earlier book for younger people, the kids' book of Black Canadian history. So I'm glad that it's working for you. I know you need it. But this
Okay,
is
and
one that you can work with.
excellent. Also, we have Louise is also saying, "I need to add that book to our collection." David from Australia is saying, "Can you repeat where the book is available?"
I will email you. I'll give Dr. Bob
Yeah,
all the
well,
details.
David knows. Yeah, David knows how to reach out to me. So, David, if you can contact me, I'll make sure that Rosemary gives me how you can get the book, and even how, and maybe if you're doing online presentation on Australia, you may want to have Rosemary come in and do a presentation for any of your organizations you're
I
aligned with.
I would love that.
Ju-
I did an international presentation for Emancipation Day. I had Great Britain, Ghana, Nigeria, and Canada on that call.
So David, I'm telling you right here we go. Ryan is saying the kids are at school, so he's not doing any learning at home. But then Sarah's saying, is there any online resources for teachers to which you've contributed?
Yes, there are a number. I did a couple of curriculum units, which are still available, and I created something called the Afrocentric Resource, which I
What?
did with the Ministry of Education.
Rosemary, we got to talk offline here because we need to just have you just talk about all the different resources. No, I'm being very serious. All the different resources that are available that you've contributed to and you know of, because many Black parents have no idea. They don't know where to start. And you could be the starting point. In my opinion, you've already positively affected future generations, but it needs to go deeper, and I feel that you could be one of the people that can make it a deeper dive per se.
Well, thank you.
Sylvia's saying we are selling it. We also have a guide. We are developing learning videos for it as well. Thank you for letting folks know. Giselle is asking, what's the title of that resource? I'm always looking for Black history material, so you may want to put it up in the screen again because it's a hot topic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just put that book up. Yeah, people are asking for you to put it up again, so it's in hot demand. And also, Ryan's asking, where am I ordering your books? Luis is
Delmore Buddy Day Resource Center, and I will put that up or give it to Dr.
Vibe.
Vibe in a bit.
Yeah, and you know what? Sylvia, could you put up Delmore the information for the Delmore Center in the chat, please? Because
I
that
was
would be
trying to find Tony's email address, Sylvia, and of course I'm online, so I can't find it.
Afrocentric. Okay, so the
Info at, would it be info, Sylvia, or Tony? What is she saying?
I'm not seeing anything from her yet, but you know what? Ryan is saying definitely we'd like to have you back, or they'd like to have you back on a session just on resources for African history or Black history for young people. I think just general. You know what? I think that would be a good idea. Just to okay. So she's put the website address up, www.dbli.ca. So what I'm going to do,
Thank you, Sylvia.
I'm going to
I wasn't
copy
sure I
it.
would have a chance to plug the book, you know.
No problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can put that in our private chat and see if our producers can put it up quickly before we leave. Let's see. Yeah, and David from Australia is saying yes, he's going to get in touch with me to get in touch with you. Also, what else are we looking? Oh yeah, Sarah's saying we need part 2 of this conversation. Yes, I knew that. I told her that months ago, but she didn't believe me till she came on live today. So I had to make sure that no, okay, so there it is at the bottom, folks.
Yeah.
It's scrolling along. That's where you can get the resources. And then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to see, are you comfortable with people having your email address, your Gmail address?
Yeah.
You
I mean,
sure?
everyone else has it.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to make sure. Contact information if you want to. I don't know if we'll get that on the screen or not, but what we're going to do
Just
is
don't expect an immediate answer.
well, folks, I'd like to say thank you for taking the time to watch this epic conversation. And as I like to say, Rosemary hit it out of the park, right? She hit it out of the park. And I like to personally, and I always tell her this, I'm going to tell her this live. I appreciate what she has done, is doing, and will be doing for our people. She's being real that she did a lot of this because she wanted better for us, not for the money.
There was no money.
There was no money, and she still did it. Hello, she still did it. So please support her any way you can. Even a thank you would be helpful.
Oh,
So
my daughter
there's her
sent me
email.
flowers.
There's her email address scrolling along at the bottom. if you want to get in contact with her directly. As she said, she's got a lot on the go, so it may not be immediate, but please send it.
Yeah, this is kind of a busy week for me. I just put that out there.
Do
But
you ever have a non-busy week?
that was called March. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Like
Whatever
everybody
since March.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? Again, thank you so much from all of us and many other of us. Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you.
Well, Sarah's saying, "Where's her Order of Canada?" Yeah.
Okay, so nominate me. I have this one.
Which one? Which is that one?
This is, you see, oh, sorry.
We can see it. We can get. We
This
got
is
it.
the Order of Ontario.
And she didn't even, she
And
didn't even
actually,
say that.
I didn't say it because I didn't talk about the awards. I talked about
Well, that's no. This is why we're doing a part 2. So no worries. Right? This is the appetizer. We're gonna get to main course next time.
Oh, the main course.
There we go.
So about supper, what are you having tonight?
I am having lamb with rosemary and sweet potato.
Sounds very good.
Cooked
I'm
on the
impressed.
barbecue.
Excellent.
Love to
Good.
cook. Love to cook. And
Because we
Sarah's,
have to nourish our minds and our bodies, right?
there you go. And Sarah's saying, Rosemary, let's get the nomination going.
Okay. Well, Sarah, maybe we should talk offline.
There we go. All right, it's Dr. Vibe here. You see, we could go on forever. The lady who didn't think she'd have more than 15, 20 minutes to contribute, and I know she was joking, but she's got the evidence that everyone who's watching this live or on replay or listening to this on the replay, she can't hide from it now. She is a Canadian treasure. Receive that. Receive that. It's Dr. Vibe, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Remember, if you want to touch base with me, the best place is my website, thedrvibeshow.com. I'm the host of Epic Conversations, and this is the home of Epic Conversations. I'd like to thank everyone who made this conversation epic, especially everyone who listened and watched live. As always, I like to close off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Also, Ryan is saying one of my best shows. Well, look who the star was. It wasn't me. I will say that don't waste this crisis. Also, give yourself grace. And finally, thank you to BIA Media to make this epic production happen. We will see you back next week on Black Canada Talking, where we have Faces by Pureness. Makeup artist extraordinaire will be with us, talking about makeup and all the wonderful things she's done. She's done incredible, incredible work. Black Canadian, done work with some incredible people in the entertainment and everyday life. God bless, peace be well, keep the faith, and walk good.